Hello, my name is Charles Poches. I'm the District Administrator for the Portage Community School District, and I'm joined today by Peter Hibner, the Assistant Superintendent in charge of Instructional Services. I want to start by thanking you for taking time to watch this informational video on the April 2nd operational referendum. As a school district, we've been very fortunate to have a great partner in our community who has supported us in providing additional operational referendum dollars since 2003 to provide our children with a great opportunity in education every year. And with any partnership, there are some basic necessities associated with a partnership, and that is a sense of trust, a sense of transparency, and an understanding of what should be the expectations for each partner. And together we have created a great partnership working with our community. On behalf of the district, we see it as our responsibility to utilize these additional resources to provide every student with an opportunity for success. So no matter what it is that they want to do in life, they have the skills, the opportunities to enjoy those, no matter what background they come from. And that is seen in our mission statement. The mission statement for the school district is committed to the success of every student. And through the community support, we have been able to identify what every student has needed, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Really what we're here to talk about today as far as this operational referendum is the April 2nd, 2013 referendum. It's for up to $2.6 million for the next 3 years, each of the next 3 years. It's essentially a continuation of the current operational referendum. Why, when we get to this point, were we looking at $2.6 million? Well, I think it's important to understand school finances. The way school finances operate is that in 1996, revenue limits came in. They took a snapshot of what the district had spent the year before, and that served as the basis. Because Portage was a very conservative community and a conservative school district, here's where our base was, where many other districts were here. Over the next few years, the state increased the average revenue limit by 2%, so that we could maintain good relationships with our employees. The state said, if you do not want to seek arbitration, you would increase their contribution at a minimum of 3/8. So if we're here and we're increasing our revenues by 2% every year, yet we're increasing what it is we're spending by 3.8, it falls behind. So in 2003, the district first came forward with an operational referendum for 1.5. And that 1.5 was to take Portage's spending and the opportunities for children from here up to everyone else. So what we're back to doing is asking for continuation of the current referendum so we can continue to provide our children with opportunities. The issue that we run into is that as we've moved along, these dollar amounts have not kept pace with the costs. So what it has done is that understanding of our community partner, how much can they afford, has made the district really look at how can we create efficiencies. What are the areas of importance within our district? And it has led to some difficult decisions. In the last 5 years, we have, even with the additional operational referendum dollars, reduced professional staff, going from 208 full-time equivalent teachers down to 191. All of our building budgets, the budgets that are utilized to purchase technology, purchase supplies, have been frozen for the last 5 years. We've also reduced operating costs. This may be a bus route here. This may be creating more efficiencies within the buildings by increasing our energy usage and the effectiveness. 4 years ago, our community partners within the community school district, our teachers, agreed to change health insurance. This was well before Act 10. Currently, our health insurance coverage is at the same cost approximately as the state plan. This was a cost savings. And our teachers and our employees have been further good partners within the school district by reducing costs, assuming more of the cost for health insurance, half of the retirement, and pay freezes. On average, it's reduced our take-home pay for our average teacher by about $4,000. This was all prior to this year, and I think it's important to understand why it is we're going forward. Again, understanding our community and what our partners in our community could afford, the board sat back and looked at what is the current environment out there. We saw a significant increase in the number of students who are coming to us that are eligible for free and reduced, which are poverty, from about 25% to approximately 40%. The city of Portage saw a decrease in property value of about 14% last year. The board at that point in time made the decision to maintain the operational referendum because, again, these dollars take us from here up to average, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The problem we ran into is that with the $2.6 million, continuing that amount, we realized that maybe not in the first year, but the second and the third year, there were going to have to be significant decisions made. The question for the board was then, do we go out and talk about the operational referendum, recognizing that significant changes would have to be made in the second or third year? Or do we make those changes now? Again, that transparency and honesty. Talking about an operational referendum, questions come up. If this passes, does this mean everything stays the same? And we had to be honest. It wouldn't be. So these decisions were made this year. Those decisions, along with the clear understanding that we would no longer see one-time stimulus dollars from either the state or the federal government, led us to restructure the high school, going from a 4-block day to a 7-period day next year. The closure of our 2 smallest rural schools, Caledonia and Fort, and program modifications at the middle school. Again, these changes would have probably been made in the second or the third year, but the board, the district wanted to be upfront with our community, honest and transparent. These changes will be made for next year so that we can balance this budget out. And what this means is that we have 3 years, if this operational referendum passes, where we have no significant changes. The question is, where does this money go? And as I have indicated before, Portage starting here, other districts starting here, gets us up to where other districts are at in equivalent in spending. But I think, and we'll show you a little bit more later on, about how we have probably more opportunities educational. When I talk about how that money is being used, you can see it in the level of taxation. If you look at the local districts, Partyville, Poinette, Baraboo, Sauk, Reedsburg, Columbus, Portage, and Lodi. And the reason these are a little bit old is this is the most current information that's available on Department of Public Instruction. In 2011-2012, our mill rate, which is $9.97, an example of that would be if you have a $100,000 house, that would be $997 in taxes specifically for the school district, was ours. The average for all the other local schools was $10.02. When we look at educational comparison, those schools that are of similar size and educational offerings that are in our conference, Baraboo, Sauk, Reedsburg, DeForest, Mount Horeb, Waunakee, and Portage, the average is $10.09. Portage is still at $9.97. To show you how that money is being utilized, even with that $9.97, that includes $2 million of operational referendum dollars. So the level of taxation and what the board sees in understanding what our community is able to give, even with that $2 million, it does not allow us to go up to average. The other side of the equation is how much is being spent. Earlier this summer we were doing presentations and a gentleman said, well, it's because just like any other governmental entity, you're spending beyond your means. Well, when we look at what we spend in comparison per student, using again DPI's information that's available on their website, in 2010-2011, you can see that the per student expenditure for Portage was $12,051. Comparing it to those same local schools, that average was $12,253. When we look at the Badger Conference, again, $12,051 versus the average of $12,304. The picture becomes even more stark when you look at what Portage spends versus the state. The state average being $13,020. This dollar amount per student also includes an additional $2 million in operational referendum. What this means is it's taking us from here where Portage started at and where we were locked in under revenue limits up to an average per student expenditures. To talk about a little more of our history of referendums, Peter will talk a little bit more about that and how as a partner we've recognized what that balance is between what we've been afforded and what we've spent.
Okay, well, through the years we've always been fortunate to have good support from our community for a number of referendums. The purpose has sometimes changed, but the support has always been there. 10 years ago, we had a referendum that allowed us to refinance some state retirement debt, which saved taxpayers $1 million of interest. We also had in red a referendum to help us build a new high school. And then we even had operational referendums here in blue 10 years ago. Now, when we paid off the high school, again, we accelerated those payments, which allowed us to save interest for taxpayers. We asked the taxpayers, and they approved, allowing us to use that money for operations if need be. That's what's represented here in yellow. And then these last few years, the operational amount has stayed the same, just as we're proposing for this referendum. Now, when you're budgeting, a year and a half in advance, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen at the state or the federal level, it's difficult to determine how much of the referendum money you're actually going to need. So what we've said to the taxpayers is that, trust us, we'll strike a balance between the needs of our kids and the ability of our taxpayers to pay. And that was difficult at first. We had some people that say, well, boy, if you're given the money, you're just going to spend it. And we said, we'll come back and we'll show you exactly how much we in fact did spend. So this chart, the total bar, the height of it, represents the amount that had been authorized, that we could have spent and taxed. In orange, the color represents the amount that we did not spend nor tax for. So the black represents the amount that we needed to use. And as you can see through the years, the amount has changed as dictated by the needs of our district. However, again, a large amount has not been spent nor taxed for. In fact, over the years, $19.8 million have been authorized. It could have been spent and it could have been taxed. Yet, in fact, over $6 million, $6.2 million, we did not spend or tax for. Now that amount doesn't necessarily it doesn't roll over to the future years. We've had some people say, why a referendum? Just use the amount that you did not use. If we don't spend or tax for it, then it's not available in subsequent years. Now with all these numbers, I think it's easy for the purpose, the message to get lost, that it's about the kids, it's about their needs. And so when we think about these additional resources, and what do they allow us to do? Some certain things come to mind. One is that it really allows us to target, to know the academic level of each of our kids. In kindergarten, we know where this child is strong and what areas they need to work on and how much growth or learning that they're showing through the years. We know that all throughout the child's academic career. In fact, I think it's interesting, 4 years ago, I was at a meeting of the Dane and Columbia County school districts, and we were putting in our test results, and this was for high school students. And I remember we were projecting them up on the board. Each district is going around, and I'm looking at our results, and I'm thinking, well, we're doing okay. We're about average. But now, fast forward to this year, it's about 6-8 weeks ago now. I was at the same meeting, and we're putting in our results, and I'm near the back. I'm one of the last districts to go. But I see Wanakees, and I see Middletons, and these other districts putting in the results, and I'm smiling. I'm feeling good because our kids are outperforming those districts. Our growth was better than those districts. So these measures, again, possible through the referendum, they're working. Our kids are reaching higher levels. I think another thing that these resources allow for us is they provide more opportunities for our students, more courses for our kids. Here at the middle school, 4 years ago, when we had kids who needed to be accelerated in math, they needed algebra, they were ready for algebra, we'd have them walk over to the high school. And we'd have 4 or 5 kids that would do that each year. This year, at the middle school, 40% of our kids are taking algebra here. In fact, we have a class of students that are taking geometry at the middle school. So our kids are getting those opportunities. We're putting in place partnerships with colleges. We now have a new partnership with UW-Whitewater, Partners in Education, which allows our kids to take college courses at our high school, taught by our high school teacher, and get college credit for them at a substantially reduced rate. They can take a 3-credit political science class for $295 here in Portage. If they waited till their freshman year at UW-Whitewater, that same class is going to cost $1,000. And we also have English 101 that recently got approved. So we have those opportunities. We have a number of dual credit opportunities with Madison College where kids can take those and they get high school and college credit. We also have, we realize that students, they don't all learn the same way or at the same pace. So we have blended opportunities. Kids can get science credit through agriculture classes. They can get math credit through tech ed classes. Again, learning those same skills, but in a modality that best suits them. We have higher expectations for kids. We need to. We know that college and career readiness, it's at a higher level if they're going to be successful beyond high school. So we've raised the bar, yet our kids are reaching and exceeding that. An example, 2 years ago, I believe it was, our ACT scores, we had about 45% of our kids would take the ACT exam. And our average score was about 22.1. But that means 55% of our kids were not taking it. So now, this past year, we had 60% of our kids take it. So we had more kids take the ACT. Most people thought, well, your score is going to go down because those kids aren't as strong as the other students, yet our score has gone up. We're at 22.9. You know, and our goal is for 100% of our kids to take that and to successfully be ready for college and careers. We're above the national average in reading and in math, 2nd through 8th grade, all grade levels. We have a decrease in remedial course offerings. So whether the child's below grade level, we're helping them to reach grade level. If they're at grade level, how do we help them stay there? If they're above, how do we continue to accelerate their growth? And we continue to raise the bar. You know, with the new national standards, Common Core state standards, it's a higher level of expectation, so we're modifying our curriculum to help our students meet that. And we have a renewed focus on math, reading, and technology. You know, our kids at the elementary level, they get 75 to 90 minutes a day of math. In reading, 160 minutes of literacy. Technology, 21st century skills. We're targeting the skills that they need at each grade level. We're raising our graduation requirements, again, because based on what our kids need when they leave us. So we're going to be instituting 3 credits of science instead of 2, 3 credits of math instead of 2. A personal finance requirement, because we know the stress that can cause on families and individuals if they don't have those skills as well. Now, we always get asked, and I understand why, well, what's going to happen to my taxes? And that's what's, again, so nice about this referendum, keeping it at the same dollar amount. The impact, there's actually no tax impact. Our current tax rate is $10.23. You can see the tax rates for the next 3 years, 1022, 1020, and 1023. In other words, no change in school taxes if this referendum passes. So, in summary, I guess, you know, with all these numbers and all this information, we think these bullet points really boil it down. A, I don't think most people would agree there's any better investment than in education and in kids and their futures. We've been fiscally responsible. You look at that chart that shows what we could have spent in tax for and what we actually did. That's $6 million that was not spent in our tax. That shows fiscal responsibility. We're not increasing the operational referendum dollar amount, staying at $2.6 million. We've made those tough decisions. No tax increase for the next 3 years. And as Charles talked about, no structural changes for the next 3 years, because we've been asked that. Well, if this passes, are we still going to have to close more schools? Are we going to have significant staff reductions? And we're pleased that we will not have to do that if this referendum passes. It really just boils down to, behind all the numbers, that a commitment to kids. That's what it's all about. That's what we're about. That's what we attempt to do each and every day, is to meet their needs. We thank you for listening to this referendum presentation. If you have any questions, please call the administration building and we'd be happy to answer those.